our next speaker, Jacob Fagenberg.
Good morning, faculty and students. I'd like to take the time to thank my mentors, Mr. Parker and Mr. Malloy, for guiding me through the process of the reflection. Throughout my life, I've developed values that have influenced my everyday actions. As many of you may know, my family, the Fagenberg family, has roots all over the globe, with origins in Vietnam, Austria, France, Poland, Canada, Russia, and even Puerto Rico. My family is a melting pot of ideals that have had a huge impact on my life. These values that I've gained from global exposure have bettered myself to be the person I am today. I have learned about the importance of patience 2 summers ago, when my cousin Antoine came to visit from France. My parents' generation has had a tradition of having cousins spend the summer with their overseas family to stay connected and learn about foreign cultures. Let's be honest, it's pretty hard when your cousin happens to speak very little English. I had to push my knowledge of French to the limit, and when he would pronounce words like beach a little inappropriately. One hot afternoon, we decided to walk down to the pool and introduce Antoine to some of our friends. Antoine seemingly did not seem to understand what rover or sharks and minnows meant, so we decided to bring him inside and get something to eat. If there was one thing that I learned that day, it would be that French people like ketchup. My bad. They love ketchup. We were playing cards, and before I knew it, I saw Antoine going at it with the ketchup bottle, slurping it down with a spoon. My cousin also learned how to rat tail that day, courtesy of my classmates, when he put ketchup on their shorts and started chasing them around the pool. With my help, Antoine learned a lot about the American culture, despite language barriers, and I learned a lot about the French culture than I ever could have inside of the classroom. My family has also had a tradition of going to Jamaica every spring break with another Calvert family, the Spawns. Throughout our years in Jamaica, we've met many of the local people and have been inspired by the community. The main highlight of the trip is giving back to the community. In recent years, both of our families have collected books, tennis equipment, and clothing to give to the kids in need at the orphanage. We would arrive with several large containers and see the excitement and smiles on their faces. After a brief introduction, we would hit with the kids on the single cracked tennis court with a worn fraying net. I was amazed at the determination and persistence of these kids, for they worked hard to become the best people they could be. One kid, named Delano, especially stood out to me, for he worked day and night since he was 4 to become the best tennis player under the age of 14 in Jamaica. By the way, he's only 10. His virtues of kindness, grit, and independence make him one of my most cherished friends. This past year, we decided to play tennis barefoot with Delano and the other kids at the orphanage. Honestly, I do not know how they did it. For playing tennis on cracked concrete without shoes can be pretty challenging. Cuts, blisters, the heat, and the fact that they were absolutely destroying us encouraged us to pop our shoes back on and play some soccer. Finally, we got to personally give out the clothes and equipment to the kids. There is nothing in the world that is a better sight than seeing the look of joy on over 50 kids' faces. They eagerly put on the new shoes, shirts, and shorts, and went right back out to hit with their new rackets. My experiences in Jamaica have taught me that with determination, no dream is too big and no act of kindness is too small. Lastly, I would like to share the story of my mom's family, who originated in Vietnam. For those of you who do not know where Vietnam is, it is that country shaped like a little fishhook hanging off the southern tip of Asia. For those of you who do not know where Asia is, my apologies. My mom lived in Vietnam until she was 6. The Vietnam War was raging at the time, 46 whole years ago, and a conflict between the American-backed South Vietnamese and the communist-backed Northern Viet Congs. This late in the war, communist forces were overtaking the country. In 1975, with the fall of Saigon certain, my grandparents and their children had to leave the country. Not everyone was able to leave. My grandfather, being the head of the equivalent of the Secret Service there and a high-ranking colonel in the Army, was able to get his immediate family onto the very last helicopter to leave in this chaotic evacuation. His family members, however, and many of his supporting military comrades were not so lucky. Some were executed, and the lucky ones were imprisoned. He did not have any contact with them for 20 whole years until 1995. Eventually, my grandfather and his family, arrived at the Fort Indian Town Gap refugee camp in Pennsylvania with about 22,000 other refugees. My grandfather is a living example of what the American dream should be. He started with nothing and worked hard to succeed. He worked multiple jobs by day, ranging from a dishwasher to a construction worker to a technician. And by night, he was studying courses to get degrees to get better jobs. His focus was always to provide his family with strong values and education. When Vietnam reopened to the West, he emptied his retirement savings and brought it to Vietnam to give out to his friends and family because he had felt that he abandoned them and would be forever indebted to them. His principles of hard work, humility, generosity live on, as they influence many of my thoughts and deeds today. Throughout my time here at Calvert, I have also learned a fair share of important pillars to live by. These values that we have obtained throughout our lives spark our thoughts, fuel our words, and inspire our actions. As I have learned from my grandfather, Antoine, Delano, and countless others, generosity is great. Patience is above all. No dream is too big. No good deed too small. Thank you.